Alright, I was at Cork International Film Festival. It's the first time I actually did the festival proper, like I actually went and saw a lot of movies, and I want to talk about them, so I'm just going to briefly give my thoughts on these films and, share what I thought of them. The first film I saw was Conclave, directed by Edward Berger. This is the same director as All Quiet on the Western Front from 2022, and from the two films that I've seen from him, I like them, but I don't love them. There's lots to appreciate with his films, but they never really come together into something truly great, even though I feel like, as a director, Edward Berger definitely has the potential to make something spectacular. With Conclave, it is almost immediately apparent that it is one of the best looking films of the year, with pristine, gorgeous cinematography and a dazzling colour palette. The lighting makes this look like a painting, and some of the shots are just breathtaking, to be honest. The costumes and set design also work in tandem with this lighting and colour palette to make this one of the most vibrant looking films of the past few years. There's even some insanely ambitious, almost dizzying camera work that feels like they were flexing. It would have taken a lot of thought and effort and coordination to achieve some of the shots in this film, which I really appreciate. I think my biggest problem with this film is that it's too slow and a bit tedious and a bit repetitive. I think with slow films, you either have a engaging plot or you have to be meticulously, masterfully crafted. As interesting as the plot is for Conclave and as well made as this film is, I don't think either come to the level of quality needed to warrant such a slow pacing. I was honestly a bit relieved when some scenes moved on to the next. There's also a lot of telling and not a lot of showing, and I get that it's a political intrigue mystery thriller, so obviously you can't really, you want to keep that mystery alive. You want to keep some ambiguity with the characters, but I do think they could have maybe communicated some of the conflicts or explored them a bit more creatively rather than just having a character just outright state what they did. I feel like that there was potential there to make this more interesting, to be honest. Overall, I do think that there are a lot of opportunities just left on the floor here. I would recommend this film overall. I think Ralph Fiennes delivers a terrific, strong performance. It's not one of my favourite performances of the year, but it is a really great performance from Fiennes as usual. I absolutely love the ending, and again I kind of think that they could have explored more with that ending. Even though I wasn't totally captivated by the entire film, I still find myself thinking about and dwelling upon certain scenes, so it can grow on me in the future maybe, but for now I'm feeling a 6 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was Hard Truths, directed by Mike Leigh. This is the same director as Naked, which is one of the best films of the 90s in my opinion. The film stars Marianne Jean-Baptiste, and she delivers what is easily one of the best performances of 2024. She is so outrageous and confrontational and explosive that you're almost afraid to look her in the eyes. Her screen presence alone is enough to cause the stress and anxiety levels to spike. It's both kind of hilarious and concerning how this character viciously interacts with every other character in the film, including her own family. There's a lot of layers to the characters in this film, so much so that I'm not entirely sure if I have a full grasp on the deeper meanings of this film yet. On the surface though, the characters feel like real people. They feel almost too real. They feel like people that I know in real life. There's a lot to pick up on the characters that isn't outright stated, so it's a film that could benefit from multiple watches. I think that there is some significance to the design of the character's house, in how kind of grey and cold and sterile the whole thing looks. It feels almost artificially clean. You can almost smell the house through the screen. It acts as a reflection of the characters themselves. Unfortunately, the story kind of fizzles out towards the end, and I'm kind of underwhelmed by the directions it takes. It just feels a bit unsatisfying because they could have done more with these characters, explored them a bit more. Left a bad taste in my mouth when the movie ended because it didn't really feel like I got a full experience. I'll definitely watch this again, and I hope to peel back more layers from it because there obviously are deeper things that this film is trying to say. And again, Jean-Baptiste is deserving of all the praise she gets for this performance. I'm feeling a very high 6 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was We Live in Time, directed by John Crowley. There was a lot of hype around this film. This was the film with the greatest attendance during the festival. It stars Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, which obviously would attract a huge crowd. Even online, there's a lot of buzz around this film, and having watched it, I can say that it is extremely sappy, corny, melodramatic, insufferable, insincere bullshit. It is sickeningly sweet, but also mind-numbingly bland. It has the emotional depth of an X Factor contestant sob story. It feels like you're watching a Christmas ad, where they try to tug on the heartstrings in the most manipulative way possible. It reminded me of that fake Robert Zemeckis movie that appeared in I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's just absolutely not my thing. It's the type of thing you go to a film festival to avoid. Just so schmaltzy and saccharine. I forgot the entire thing on the drive home. It's like if Live, Laugh, Love were a movie. In a film about characters trying to make the most of the time that they have with each other, this film is ironically a complete waste of time. I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was Misericordia, directed by Alan Garpodi. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I don't have much to say about this. It was completely unremarkable in every way. It was competently made. It was, well shot, well performed. It didn't really do anything to annoy me, but it didn't really do anything to impress me either. I was never really bored, but I was never really moved by it either. In terms of plot, it just felt like a watered down version of something that I've seen hundreds of times before. Trying to describe this film would be like trying to describe a concrete wall. I had a good seat in the cinema. The crowd was quiet. It's kind of a nothing movie, to be honest. I might as well have just watched nothing. I can't really recommend it. Don't watch it. 5 out of 10. Another film I saw was Loveable, directed by Lilja Ingolfsdottir, which was her feature-length directorial debut. And based on this, she is very talented and shows a lot of promise as a filmmaker. The film stars Helga Gurin, and her lead performance is deeply, deeply compelling. Sure, it's easy to point at the scenes where she's exploding with emotion, but her performance is so much more than that. This character is constantly fighting her emotions, and you can see it through her facial expressions, tone of voice, or even through her body language. This performance combines with the thoughtful writing to create a complex, multi-dimensional character. The film features a lot of close-up shots to heighten the claustrophobia, like you're being smothered. They also allow you to scrutinize the details of Gurin's performance. The editing is a bit jarring, with some scenes abruptly cutting to the next, as if to emphasize the character's volatility. The way flashbacks are used is honestly genius. I don't want to give it away, but it's such a simple and effective way of gaining insight into the character's psyche. Some of the most impactful moments of this film are these flashbacks. The film doesn't feature much music, but makes full use of it when it does. It's so rare to see music be utilized in an appropriate manner such as this. There's one usage of music that was actually incredible and worked perfectly with the emotions of the scene. It was difficult not to feel overwhelmed. I am immensely impressed with this. Again, Lilja Ingolfsdottir shows a lot of promise, especially when her feature-length debut is this good. This is a character study where you walk away with an actual in-depth understanding of the main character. There is so much to read into, and I've been thinking about it constantly since I've seen it. It is a film that is expertly crafted, is emotionally resonant, and is sometimes even therapeutic. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was a Danish film called The Girl with the Needle, directed by Magnus von Horn. For about the first 30 minutes, I was so into this. It features stark, high-contrast black and white photography, plus a grimy production aesthetic. It reminds me of The Lighthouse a bit. The score sounds like something out of a horror film, creating an unsettling atmosphere. With this being set in post-World War I, it's fitting how this film features some stylized, expressionist sequences that take obvious inspiration from early silent films. After a while, it becomes apparent that this film didn't have much to offer besides this one singular tone. The plot is mostly aimless up until the third act, so the script really could have been tightened up. I didn't find the lead character to be very interesting. I spent a lot of the film's runtime just waiting for something to happen, waiting for something to develop. The stylized presentation is cool, but I want more than that out of a film. With how great the score is, some of it was weirdly anachronistic, With how much they tried to emulate silent films, it was weird when the score started to sound like a Massive Attack song. A lot of the metaphors and symbolism throughout were fairly obvious, so I'm not left with much to think about. I love parts of this film, but it never comes together into something truly great, and combined with how morbidly bleak the story is, I would find it difficult to recommend this to people. I'm feeling a 6 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was All We Imagine as Light, directed by Pael Kapadia. It also won the Grand Prix award at this year's Cannes Film Festival. It's been a while since I've connected with a film this understated. This is an extremely immersive film. It feels like you're being pulled in deeper and deeper with each scene. The score helps a lot, especially with the lazy, carefree piano. The film does such an excellent job at portraying its characters that it feels like you're watching real people. By the end, you understand them so intimately that it would be difficult to not see yourself in them. The setting of Mumbai is vibrantly brought to life with candid documentary-style scenes. The city is almost endless. The streets are packed with people and the roads are always filled with traffic. The city is basically a character itself. Even though this is a slow film, there is so much variety in the setting that it never becomes stagnant. I loved just about everything about this film, from the characters to the score to the cinematography. It offers such a warm, poignant and intimate experience. My one and only complaint is that it feels much longer than it actually is, but there's still so much to uncover with it that I doubt it would be a problem on rewatch. It feels like a fairy tale while also being heavily grounded in reality. It might be a corny thing to say, but that's really the power of movies, to be honest. The only other concern I have about this movie is that it will not be submitted for the Best International Film Award at the Oscars. That's very unfortunate because this is a film that a lot of people will love, and it's just a shame that it's not going to be getting the promotion it deserves. I think everyone should watch this. I found it to be a very thoughtful, intelligent, mature and moving film. That's all I have to really say about it for now. I'm feeling a 9 out of 10 on this. Another film I saw was The End, directed by Joshua Oppenheimer. Now, I was really excited for this film for a number of reasons. First of all, it's directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, who did The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence, which are two of the best documentaries I've seen. I would highly recommend them. This was his first fictional film, so to transition from documentary into fictional narrative films piqued my interest. I wanted to see what he would do, where he would go with it, and see him branch out a bit. This is a film about a rich American family living in a bunker after the apocalypse has happened, an apocalypse in which they are in some ways responsible for. That's a really cool concept. I wanted to see what Oppenheimer would do with it. This is also a golden age musical. It also stars Tilda Swinton, Michael Shannon and George Mackay, who are three actors that I'm quite fond of, so that was another pull factor for me. Just seeing all of these traits come together, you know, the director, the premise, the cast, the weird mix of genres. I was interested to see what this was, because on paper this seems like one of the weirdest films to be released this year. Not just this year, but in the past few years. I watched it and I unfortunately didn't like it. I'll talk about some positives first. I think the performances are good. I love the production design. It's filmed in a real salt mine, which I think adds a lot to the experience of the film. Like, that salt mine is just so beautifully captured, and it just adds such an alien aesthetic to the film. Unfortunately, this film is far too monotonous, it is too dry, and it is too long. At 2.5 hours, this did not need to be as long as it is. As a musical, I thought the songs kind of sucked, unfortunately. There wasn't enough variety in them. Again, it's too monotonous. They all just blended together and none of them really stood out as being memorable to me. Unfortunately, this film doesn't explore its characters or themes any further than what you'd get from reading the plot description. You could probably just infer most of this film anyway from what I've said about it. It's just a really unsatisfying, unworthwhile experience. There was a Q&A with Joshua Oppenheimer after the film, and listening to him talk was more compelling and entertaining than the film itself. He was able to communicate the ideas that the film was going for better than the film itself, and I honestly kind of wish that that's what it was. I kind of wish that I got to see this man just sit down and talk about his ideas rather than sit through this film. I really do like Joshua Oppenheimer's films, and I really do think he is an important voice in terms of modern films and filmmaking. That being said, even though I don't like this film, I am still excited for whatever he does next. I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on this. The next film I saw was The Brutalist, directed by Brady Corbett. This was my most anticipated film, not just of the festival, but of the year of 2024. There's a lot of buzz going around this film and how it was filmed and how it was made that I think is really generating a lot of hype for it, because when you read about what this film is, it does seem like something new, something fresh, something crazy. It's 3.5 hours long, basically nearing 4 hours. It has a built-in intermission in it, and it was made for under $10 million, which is insane because it's such a gigantic film in terms of scope and scale that I wouldn't have even dreamed that you could make a film like this for 10 million. And then on top of that, it's filmed in VistaVision. I think it's like the first film to be shot in that format in like 60 years. And then also it was shot in less than a month. It's insane. It's directed by Brady Corbett. I think this is his third feature film. I haven't seen any of his other films that he's directed before this, but I have seen him act in films. He's an actor turned director, and I think that as an actor he's one of the most underrated actors working today. I don't know if he's still acting, I think he might be retired, but his performances in Funny Games and Simon Killer are just stellar. So it's coming from an artist who I'm already fond of now, you know, obviously in a different lane, and it has all this hype around it. I was really excited for this film. I wanted to see what this was, what this would bring, and I don't even know where to begin. This film is jaw-dropping in nearly every single way. It's actually a miracle that this exists at all. It's a film of such an insane, colossal ambition, but it is also one of the most layered and nuanced and challenging films of recent years. It is a film that is in conversation both with the past it depicts and the present that we are living in. Every single piece works together like cogs in a machine to create a cohesive, mesmerizing experience. The score, the production design, the editing, the cinematography, and the sound design all work in harmony to reinforce one another. This cohesion can be seen immediately with the opening scene, which is one of the most incredible things I've seen in a film this year. Brady Corbett is working on another level here. The film features 3 lead performances and each one is outstanding. Adrien Brody is transcendent. It's been a while since he's been able to have the opportunity to flex his acting muscles like this. Felicity Jones, who I always just viewed as a Star Wars actor, delivers what is easily her career best performance here, and I'm actually just blown away by her. I'm just so excited for the career she has ahead of her now. Guy Pearce, who is an actor that I love but rarely gets the chance to shine, steals the show with his cartoonish, larger-than-life performance. He reminded me of Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master, and I think that parallel was intentional. Not only does this film draw comparisons to The Master, but it also draws comparisons to There Will Be Blood, and even other films like The Godfather. I'm not even exaggerating when I compare this film to The Godfather. This really does feel in the same spirit, in the same level of quality as The Godfather, and I'm not saying that lightly. I genuinely believe that. This is an insanely impressive, incomprehensibly massive, and endlessly thought-provoking film. The 3.5 hours flew by. It doesn't feel that length at all. In fact, it could have been longer. This thing could have been twice that length. This could have been 7 hours. It feels like a classic from an alternate history was just dropped into our timeline. I have so much to say about this film's themes and messaging, and yet I still don't think I've uncovered everything there is that this film is trying to say. I don't want to give away my interpretation just yet because it hasn't had a proper wide release yet, but I do think it's fitting that a film about architecture is itself a gigantic monument that will likely stand the test of time. I'm feeling a 10 out of 10 on this. And the last film I saw at Cork Film Festival was Rumours, directed by Guy Madden, Galen Johnson and Evan Johnson. This film was a part of the closing gala of the festival, and to be honest, I didn't hear about this film at all until I saw it in the film festival's program. I thought, what the hell, it's the closing gala, I'm free. It has Cate Blanchett in it and Charles Dance and Alicia Vikander. So I thought, you know, why not? Let's go see it, let's see what this is. And I don't even know what this movie was about or what it was trying to do. It just flops around on the ground like a dying fish and then it's over. I don't know if I was supposed to be impressed by any of it. I saw this the same day I saw The Brutalist. And imagine the vulgar juxtaposition of going between those two films. They are the complete inverse of each other. I am in disbelief that either film exists. The Brutalist is so insanely meticulous and visionary that it is unlike any other film that has been made in the last 20 years. Rumours is such an incompetent train wreck that I don't know how anyone thought it was fit for release. Right from the opening scene, I knew this was going to be shit. It was like the rough cut made it into the final draft. You couldn't tell which character was speaking. Their dialogue sounded obviously ADR'd. And you could tell that the background sound effects were looped every few seconds. You could actually hear the interval in which they were looped. Student films are more professional than this. This film has 3 credited directors. I don't know how. I don't know how it took 3 people to make this. There were 3 of them. And it is one of the most poorly directed films I've seen in a while. This film is just 8 characters droning incessantly like air conditioning vents. Every character spoke the exact same way for each scene. Sometimes they didn't enunciate properly, so it was difficult to understand what was happening or why it was happening. It is horrendously written. I don't know why any character does anything at all. They just randomly fall asleep, and sometimes they just run off only to come back. I don't know what the antagonist was supposed to be. I think it was meant to be some sort of Lovecraftian entity, but there's no cohesion to any of it. There are zombies that don't do anything, and they look like Halloween decorations, and there is a giant brain in the woods. I don't know what the link between the two of them is. I failed to see how either of them are connected and what they were doing, or what caused them to appear. They set up a romance between 2 of the characters at the start, and it is never alluded to again. All of the jokes are terrible. This film is about the world leaders of the G7 summit being stranded in the woods, and you'd think this would be a political satire like Dr. Strangelove or something, but the only observations it makes are such obvious non-starters that I don't even know why they were written in the first place. Anyone with self-respect and self-awareness wouldn't even think to write jokes like this, because a child wouldn't find it funny. One of the recurring jokes is that the Italian guy likes cooked meat. It's because Italians eat cooked meat sometimes. This film says nothing about international politics, and I don't even know why this was about the G7 summit at all. The whole film looks like absolute dog shit. It looks like they used the filters that came free with the editing software. This isn't me joking, by the way. I actually think they did that. Based on the piss poor level of quality of this film's presentation, it should have been uploaded to YouTube. This film is actually worse than those random B movies you'd find on Amazon Prime. And what the fuck is up with this casting? Why was the extremely British Charles Dance the American president? Cate Blanchett, I think you should fire your agent. Has something happened to her? Like, is she okay? How did she end up in 2 of the worst films of 2024? Not only that, how did she end up appearing in a film worse than Borderlands within the span of a year? If Cate Blanchett was willing to star in this, I could probably hire her for a birthday party or something. You know, maybe she could do a skit with the David Brent impersonator. This feels like a fake movie within another movie. You know, a film that's obviously meant to look cheap and shit and fake, and you see a cheeky little Cate Blanchett cameo. Yeah, this film is horrendous in every single way. There are no redeeming qualities. I wanted to leave the entire time it was on. It is a total waste of time. It is nothing but incompetence. I'm feeling a 1 out of 10 on this. Don't watch it. So that does it for the films I saw at Cork Film Festival. There were a lot of great films here. I'm happy with what I saw. Some of my favourite movies of the year I saw at this festival. I think it was a good curation. I felt like I had at least something to say about most of the films I saw. I'm looking forward to next year's. Next year's the 70th anniversary. Hopefully it'll be big. Hopefully it'll be bigger. Hopefully there'll be like fireworks or something. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Goodbye.